This has been my waiting room book for a little while now. The book that I bring with me when I have errands to run that require me to stay in one place. I haven't finished it yet, but given what I want to talk about doesn't require me to know the rest of the plot, I'm going to jump on making a video about it now. Small Gods by Terry Pratchett is one book in his Discworld universe. It's a complicated universe, but more in a way that a tapestry is woven of many different threads, not in a tangle of unorganized mess. Small Gods focuses on one part, a religion that was created around the great god Om, complete with church hierarchy, persecution, and religious colonization. Om comes back every so often, and this time the chosen one he lands with is Brutha, one of those types that would be perfectly content to be a simple office worker in today's era. As great as it would be to talk about the development of characters here, the main protagonists to antagonists, villains, and philosopher side characters, I want to use this as an example of narrative voice. First, a mini lesson on narration types before I get to the book. There are three main types. First person, which is your I perspective, a person telling their own story. Second person, which is the you perspective. And third person, which is the he, she, they, it perspective. Most books tend to be in first or third. Within those narrative types, there are three different styles, generally done with third person, due to the typical separation between main character and narrator of that perspective. I try to say typical in most with these because there are always exceptions, and most things with writing tend to be guidelines rather than solid walls. Anyways, zooming in, we have limited perspective in which readers only know what the main character knows and can read what they're thinking. If it's more than one character that gets the perspective focus, it can sometimes be called head hopping, because while in third person, we stay in that character's head for however long. We also have omnipotent perspective, which is a word that means all-knowing. The narrator knows the emotions and thoughts of every character, knows the plot ahead, and so on. Then lastly, objective perspective. This is an unbiased narrator that doesn't seem to have any emotional connection or vested interest in the story that they are telling. How does this fit within Small Gods? Well, Small Gods is an example of an omnipotent narrator, and a perfect example of narrative voice. Sometimes people fall into the trap of thinking third person is boring, just trying to describe what is happening without any pizzazz. But find narrative voice. If that's your voice, that's cool. If the narrator becomes almost a character, that's also cool. I don't know enough about Pratchett to know which one applies to his writing, but Small Gods has a really fun narrator voice. Here, I'm going to read you a little bit of the start. Now consider the tortoise and the eagle. That's the opening line. The narrator goes on to describe the tortoise and the eagle, and then continues to talk about how the eagle hunts the tortoise. And a minute later, the tortoise finds the world dropping away from it. And it sees the world for the first time no longer 1 inch from the ground, but 500 feet above it. And it thinks, what a great friend I have in the eagle. And then the eagle lets go. A line or two between this. Gravity is a habit that is hard to shake off. And then a few more lines, and then this one. But of course, what the eagle does not realize is that it is participating in a very crude form of natural selection. One day, a tortoise will learn how to fly. And then, portion of the next section. One of the reoccurring philosophical questions is, does a falling tree in the forest make a sound when there is no one to hear? Which says something about the nature of philosophers, because there is always someone in a forest. It may only be a badger, wondering what that cracking noise was, or a squirrel a bit puzzled by all the scenery going upwards, but someone. At the very least, if it was deep enough in the forest, millions of small gods would have heard it. Things just happen, one after another. They don't care who knows. But history? History's different. History has to be observed. Otherwise, it's not history. It's just, well, things happening one after another. And of course, it has to be controlled. Otherwise, it might turn into anything. Do you see what I mean? The narrator has a voice, a dry wit in the way that this story is told. That's pretty much all I've got on this one. I'm going to finish this book. In the meantime, think about your narration style in your own writing if you're a writer watching this video. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed my rambling. Donation links are in the description below, as well as my Ko-Fi. Go check them out if you want. Until the next time, pick up a pen and start reading.